This is the Yay, I'm Reg Clay.
And Norman G.
This is the Yay, where we talk about life in the theater and the theater of life.
Yeah!
As always, we want to thank Central Works for sponsoring the Yay. Central Works, a new play theater headed up by Gary Graves and Jan Leifler. Central Works, reinventing theater one play at a time. And as always, we want to thank...
I'm really good at saying that.
Yeah, oh, hey, practice. I've only said it 15, 20 times. As any case, we want to thank Central Works for sponsoring us and our wonderful consulting producer, Mallory Samara, for everything that she does for the Yay. And we have a fantastic guest as we round up our Pride Week. Well, we have one more week. Sean Owens.
Hello.
How are you?
Quite well. I'm very happy to be here with both of you. Thank you so much for having me.
We get like half a week. We get half a week more of Pride.
Yeah, exactly. It's a shame that Pride Week has to share with Juneteenth, and there are other things going on as well. Pride should have its own.
It's sort of a shame that either of those things are restricted to a day or a month at all. Maybe They should be year round. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah, exactly. And Sean Owens, you are the head writer of Pride Inside. It's the sketch comedy show that's streaming right now on Killing My Lobster.
That's right.
You guys had your opening on June the 25th. That was yesterday. Mm-hmm. And you have today, and then it won't be live tomorrow, but there is a thing.
Streaming. Yeah, tomorrow will be a full day stream so people can watch it anytime they want. We call it the Pride Sunday Hangover Show. Mm-hmm. Because there's no telling when you'll need that little 40 minutes of uplift, a little sketch comedy to get you back in the swing of things into Pride weekend.
Yeah, there you go. Well, only 3 days. I mean, I would think it would be a lot longer, but it should be fun to watch that. And as I begin our podcast each week, Norman, how was your week?
Best thing that happened this week is, and this is definitely a public service announcement, community service. I got a fat ticket near the Golden Gate Bridge, and I'm like, I'm not giving you people all this money. So I went in and asked for community service. They said I could do it. I said, I live in Oakland. This was in Marin, right? Marin County. And they said, oh, no problem. And they were going to transfer me over. Well, COVID. I go down to the courthouse. They won't even let you in. The guy, I said, I need to go up to Project 22. He's like, doesn't exist anymore. I'm like, what? Gave me some numbers. Sure enough, I call the first number. It's disconnected. Call the second number. It goes to voicemail. No, So I scrambled with that, and I eventually called Marin back. Got the same hassle. The numbers worked, but I kept just getting bumped into voicemail. Finally, I get a human being, and she says, just fill out the paperwork. I'm like, yes. So Central Works, our sponsor, I guess technically that means I shouldn't have been able to do community service for them, but I am volunteering 10 hours for them. They signed the paperwork. I turned the paperwork in. It was so easy. I walked up, the lady took my paperwork, turned to her computer, got a stamp out, stamped the date on it, typed something, gave me a receipt. Like, done.
How much would you have paid? How big was the ticket?
The fine was $239. Then it's $50 processing fee. And then if I want to keep it off my insurance, traffic school is another $50. So, they were going to get almost $400 out of me. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, that's a racket on in itself. Well, I'm glad you avoided that. Yeah.
Norman, I hope you've learned an important lesson about public nudity. And try to keep the package under
exactly. Stop stripping, man. Stop it.
Hey, I get paid for that.
That's right.
Especially near the Golden Gate Bridge. That's why we get that kind of tourism over from Marin.
Why not? A peep show. There's been some interesting current events, especially with Pride Month. Carl Nassib. Do you guys know who Carl Nassib is? Are you guys football fans at all?
Oh yes.
Are you ready for some gay football? Carl Nassib has now he is the first active player who is openly gay. There've been a couple of guys who waited until they were retired. And of course we know the Michael Sam story, which I think is a rather sad story. He was drafted and then he was sort of let go. And no one knows, what's happening with Michael Sam.
No,
but Carl Nassib of the Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders.
I know I was going to get all happy and wait a minute, that's not our team anymore.
Right, exactly. Sean, do you have any thoughts about that at all?
I would love to see queer, like not just more players being comfortable being queer in football, but I would love to see a queer infusion, because I think, frankly, football is based on pageantry, but it's such sad pageantry in a way. It's all still based on, it should look a little bit more like what it is, which is a Coliseum sport. I want to get these outfits back to their sort of gladiator roots, and a little bit more gold on the helmet and the boots is what I'm looking forward to.
There you go. And you imagine, those skirmishes where, they're grabbing the ball and they're, huddle up with one another. You think that would be more prone to
right now that can all feel a little friendlier. It doesn't have to feel so adversarial. It's
exactly.
just people working things out.
And also, we were talking off mic, the White House, the very first Pride summit, I guess. What do they call it? Biden says Pride is back in the White House. Back. I don't know when it was even there.
Well, it's always been there. It's just been in the closet.
Yeah.
I think maybe he was referring to Eleanor Roosevelt.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
The colors are great. If you've seen the photos of the hallways, I mean, I saw the front of the building and that was cool, but then inside the hallways, all done up rainbow. I was like, oh,
that's amazing.
I'm a history buff, so there are rumors that Grant may have been gay, and James Buchanan, he was the first person to not marry, who was the president, right. 15th president. So you never know. But yeah, Pete Buttigieg, he had a wonderful speech where he talked about.
No, I missed that.
Yeah, he talked about Matthew Shepard and just, having to, witness all of these events, in the 90s or whatever. And now it seems like we've come full circle where now being gay or being LGBTQ is being normalized. And yes. If the White House is normalizing it, then hopefully the rest of America and the world will normalize it.
Hopefully. That's exactly right. Reg, you made an excellent point that these things are just being acknowledged. It's not that there's an official stamp on them even. It's just that the country is already celebrating and has accepted these things. So why, like Juneteenth, it makes sense because the country is already doing this. And at last we have an administration that's like, I guess you guys set the standard for what we do in this country. I guess that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. And of course, this could not have happened if Biden didn't win over Trump. I just wonder, none of this would have happened if Trump had gotten his second term. So, good things happen for those who persevere and fight.
Well, and the anniversary, the 28th is the anniversary of Stonewall. The Stonewall riots.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, 2 days from now. Yeah. It's important to remember. All right, with that, Sean Owens, we love to talk about Killing Our Lobster and the work that you've done there. Killing My Lobster, I'm sorry.
It's all of our lobsters, Reg. It's everyone's lobster.
There you go. Tell us an origin story. How did you get involved in theater, or where were you born and raised?
Oh my gosh. So I am from a sleepy little town called Sacramento, California. You may have heard of it. I put it on the map, really. I came here in 1986 and stepped out of the car, breathed my first breath of San Francisco foggy air, and I'm home. I had never felt that good. I was an allergic kid. I was a very sick kid, allergic to everything. And the first breath of air, I was like, oh, I think I'm gonna live. I can start making plans for maybe making it to 30. And so I literally sort of had to read Genesis when I came to San Francisco. I came to San Francisco State, got involved in the theater arts department there.
Yep, that's where we met.
That's exactly right. Long ago in those hallways. And Norman, you have always been an unstoppable force and kind of an undefinable one. You cross-disciplinary before that was really a thing, and embracing all the parts of the art form that other people were really sort of eager to be like, oh, I don't know if clown really belongs in this world. And I don't know, Norman just seems so outside of other things. And So of course, Norm and I appreciated each other from an early age because
I'm hoping we get to dig into that more. I want to continue in the origin story, but I really want to dig into that more because there's a way where we both sort of left school, and you come out of a theater program and most people are going to go off and be bankers or whatever, and they're done.
Yeah.
And not only were we not done, but we plotted our own course. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yes, this is one of those things where it's like, I feel like maybe Norman and I are sort of like the 5 and the 101. Like we took very different routes to get to a similar location because here we are now. And for 30 years, our paths have not intersected as much as you would think.
Yeah, almost never.
It's so funny. We admire each other's work. We see each other's work. We're familiar with each other. But you would think just by virtue of who we are and the kind of work we do, we would get thrown into the same pot. But maybe there's only room for one Norman G in this town. And I just have to step back and wait my damn turn. They're like, yeah, if we can't get Norman, I think I have another number we can call.
Here's a question for the both of you. Do you think that theater was a lot more experimental or more, I don't know, rebel-like back in the 80s more than it is now?
What I remember about coming right out of school, well, one of the wonderful things was that, of course, when you stay in a town where you've studied theater, you still have all of those friends and allies working in the same town, and they have your shared vocabulary. So if you need to put something up over a weekend, you can go, okay, remember that cabaret thing we did? We're going to do something like that, only it's based on this book. And we've got, that person writing songs. So it'll be good. And people will just jump in. So that's what I remember was sort of this, what I called pain in the ass, seat of the pants theater, because you could just make. And there wasn't as much jurisdiction around it. People didn't want to see a synopsis and a 3-page outline of the work. They just wanted you to make. And it was happening in weird places. I don't know the weirdest place you worked, Norman. I have
under the freeway in a dumpster.
Well, okay, maybe you beat. I mean, Thrill Peddlers has its place. No, I'm kidding. There were crazy. I remember like back of welding shops. I performed on a bar stool on top of rusty sheet metal once. I did a Beckett play in which I had to run my own lights.
Was that Berkeley space?
It was no, it was down near it was called Dance House, and Jillian Chadsey and her brother ran it, and it was down near the kind of dog patch area, which I still don't acknowledge as an official part of the city because it wasn't here when I got here.
Well, and it's all gentrified, so
forget it.
No, those spaces are gone.
Yeah.
And I imagine money was not an issue back then. You could easily rent a space or,
we didn't have any, so it was absolutely not an issue.
Yeah.
I performed in a lot of spaces that, like, when you asked questions, people were like, I have the keys. Don't worry about it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That became a regular. I remember lots of times where that was basically the deal. Either somebody would let you in or you got to have somebody walk you in and you got the space. Getting an audience was always tricky in those places, but
yes, this is the thing I can't believe. Right now we have the internet, we have everybody being bombarded. You can get a message across the world with the click of a key. And I remember like putting Xerox flyers up on phone poles and thinking, this is gonna pull them in. And it did. That was the amazing thing, was you were like, you saw that? You saw that piece? But
that's 80s. That is the 80s theater. There was just so many little things happening and people were going. I remember standing out on the street in a line to slowly eventually get let into a space, tiny little space. You see this show where you could almost spit and hit the actor. And no, you could spit and hit the actor.
I was going to say, and I was often the actor that was getting spit on. So.
Well, I know I'm sorry. I was just going to say, in New York, there's the Village Voice and all these little teeny weeny papers. I'm sure in San Francisco they had the same thing, where you could put a little ad or something like that.
There was different things, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I remember there was a paper that used to come in the mornings for free. I don't remember what it was called, Norman. It was like the Independent, I think is maybe what it's called.
Yeah.
And I used to think all the time, like, God, if only I could get a show on the cover of the Independent, boy, it would be on every doorstop in America. And I had that experience where like it was like a terrible headshot of me with a terrible background, like badly superimposed. And it was on every doorstop in America. And the next day, it was in every gutter in San Francisco. And I was like, there's a theater career in a nutshell. Is you're literally like everybody's wake up you're reading, and then the next day you are pulp.
One question for you, Sean. Do you see yourself more as a writer or as an actor or as a comedian?
That's a really good question. The things I say are comedic. The things I write tend to be comedic as well. But I think when I write is because I'm trying to scratch an itch I can't get to just running my yap or performing in somebody else's work. So my writing, I think, is meant to contribute more to sort of the architecture of theater, if that makes sense. I'm trying to push an envelope. I mean, I guess we all are, most writers are, but I really want to kind of contribute, move forward the conversation about theater and how theater gets made. So when I write something, it's because I'm looking to challenge not just myself and please my own needs, but I'm really trying to step the conversation forward. For many years, for me, that was writing female roles for female voices, whether those being performed by female identified actors, or drag queens, or myself. In any case, I was very interested in putting more women's voices into theater, and that's certainly continued. But
yeah, it reminds me so much of a Women's Will. Who I forget the person that we brought on for that.
Erin Merritt.
Erin Merritt, that's right. Yeah, she focused on that as well. Yeah, and the reason why I'd asked Sean, because a lot of comedians, they really want to just be on stage. They want to be sort of in the limelight. But then there are writers who are like, you know what, it doesn't matter. I'll write the script, give it to somebody else, and it's still my work. And it sounds like you have more of a message where, it's not like, hey, all lights on me. Sometimes they say that comedians can be a bit narcissistic or a bit, egocentric, and it doesn't sound like that applies to you.
Oh, I think that's unfair. I think sometimes is really not necessary in that sentence. No, I think comedians by nature have to have not only tremendous ego, but you're a social critic, right? If you're going to make a joke about something, it's because you have a viewpoint that you genuinely believe in, and you're using that to sort of undermine or rub away at a kind of a hypocrisy in society. So it's a incredibly valid art form, but it does come with, you have to be fully loaded, you have to be fully armored, I guess I would say. The great thing about comedy writers is that they're completely the other way around. If they're not the ones delivering it, we get to be as tender and as neurotic as you can possibly imagine, because we get to hand that off to actors and have them go out and say the words.
Nice.
How did you get with Killing My Lobster? Because I will tell you, I remember Killing My Lobster, I think in one of their early iterations, and they were just, they were kind of a wannabe Saturday Night Live, kind of a, just the crudest humor possible. And somewhere along the line, they suddenly started to really focus on real writers. Yes. And that dynamic shifted.
Yes, I remember when, I believe Peter Nachtrieb was part of that clan from an early incarnation, but I think Killing My Lobster has been in the Bay Area for 25 years or a little better at this point. I only came into the fold 6 years ago, but if you're talking about origin stories, 25 years ago, I had in my mind, a rival sketch comedy group that had been started by shotgun players.
Yes.
Shotgun players came to this little group of us and said, if you'd like to write something, we have a slot in the basement of Laval's Subterranean under the pizza place over in, you guys all know Laval's.
Oh yeah.
And
just off of campus, just off Cal, yeah.
Right. And you can have anything from our old costume inventory. So we literally, before we ever wrote a single sketch, we went and dug through the costumes and all got dressed up and went, okay, I think this character's name is Professor Deebles, and they're a roller skating muskrat who never speaks. Okay, great. Professor Deebles, we'll write a sketch. There's a giant crab costume. Great. Giant crab sketch is in the hopper. We started that, and we learned that what we were bringing to sketch comedy that was unheard of was we were all actors. So we believed in completely committing. It wasn't that kind of, some comedy writers are just there to deliver the bits. They're like, oh, I wrote this great joke, and no, we were really interested in the character, the through line, the callbacks, how it worked as an art form, how it worked as a storytelling practice. So we developed a following that was very unlike other sketch comedians. But sitting on the horizon, our Moby Dick was Killing My Lobster. It was always there, looming over us, doing better than us, getting bigger audiences. And we, sort of quietly resented them until we found out that they thought very well of us, and that when they couldn't take a gig, sometimes somebody from Killing My Lobster would be like, hey, do you guys want this thing? And we're like, oh no, they're nice. It was,
you can't hate them anymore.
Yeah. So enemies no longer. And then about 6 years ago, the company really changed. It had started as what is jokingly referred to as 6 brown guys. It was not. It was 6 guys from Brown University.
Right.
It was like 6 the whitest, straightest guys you can imagine writing comedy together and drinking as much beer as they possibly could. And
sounds like frat boys.
Patina. Yeah. And it had that patina. And slowly women came in and said, first, you have to clean up this office. And also, you're not the only ones who can write comedy. I think there need to be more perspectives. And so Killing My Lobster has grown up in the time I have been there so much. It's so much more, it's a product of its time, in the same way that really, if you look at Saturday Night Live from 25 years ago, there was a lot of punching below the belt, and a lot of kind of off color comedy happening there as well. And we just kind of grew up as a culture.
Yeah, I would agree. I remember from Venue 9 is where I first saw Killing My Lobster.
Wow.
And so when we get to the Peter Nachtrib play, I was like, oh, they're doing a play. They're doing a whole play. Oh my God. And it so clearly came from those roots, but had something to say, solid acting. Oof, it was gorgeous.
Yes. I think that was Hunter Gatherers. Am I correct?
Yep.
And one of the amazing things is that my checks still come from something called Lobster Theater Project. So it never stops. It never stopped in its heart being about actors and writers, which is one of the things I love, is that Killing My Lobster pays every one of its performers, and it puts more value, I would say, on the writing process than most playwriting programs I know. Like the sacred space given to it, the amount of time allowed for development, proportionate to what we do. We get like 4 weeks to write a show that goes up for a month.
Right.
So think about that. If every show that ran for a year got a year to develop, those sorts of things. and if writing was valued equal to the rehearsal process, and all of those people got paid equally, it's really a pretty glorious thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, there are a lot of companies where you don't see that at all. Either the actors aren't getting paid or the writers aren't getting paid. And there's such a short time to, develop the stuff. So it sounds like Killing My Lobster. And it's interesting that you mentioned, when I think about, and that's why I mentioned the frat boys, so much of the comedy, the sketch comedy, are written by heterosexual white men who has this sort of frat boy mentality, as if, they're still in college, and get that type of humor, which who knows, it may be funny, but it's really limited to a very limited audience. And you really need, more writers and people of color and the LGBT community to give a type of humor. And we're seeing it, with Tiffany Haddad, I think that's her name, and a bunch of other writers in television, really giving another perspective on what comedy should be.
It's so refreshing. And what's so beautiful to see is that it doesn't just change what you're laughing about. It literally changes the cadence of humor, because other cultures can be so much gentler. They can get at it in so many different ways, or they can be pointed without the kind of colonialist angle on it, where it's like, I've now planted my flag and this is what I think about it, and it's all anyone's going to think forever.
Yeah.
There
like you said,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
There
No,
continue to be
like
more and more perspectives contributing to the conversation. And I think no matter what the art form is, when you get when it goes outside of its base and reaches across, and people go, oh, I like that. I mean, I think people understand comedy so much better than they used to because of the internet. Now people are making short films.
Yep.
TikTok is mostly comedy.
Yeah.
And it's mostly people cooking that in their own home. And I'm so perversely proud that that's the moment we live in.
No, I was going to say, it was something you touched on earlier, the that need of having the audience and figuring out your timing so that you're throwing something out there that people may not expect, being able to give it that time, and knowing as a writer, that's what I'm doing to the audience so that your timing supports that.
Yes.
It's just gorgeous. When people walk out of that experience, they kind of go, the world is just a little bit different now than it was when I walked in.
Absolutely. I think we do. That's one of the great things that that comedy allows, is it actually sort of sharpens your perspective, or it dilates your eyes, sort of like an optometrist visit. A little more light comes in than it ever used to. Just partially because of the endorphin rush and all the positivity that you get out of that, which is also why bad comedy really feels like, it's like a dry Thanksgiving turkey.
It's cringy. It's very, very cringy. Yeah.
We're all going to eat that together for as many weeks as it takes.
Oh.
When did you know, Sean, that this was your thing? This was your gift, that you were not going to, do the Dilbert job, working at office, but, this is your thing?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think every employer I had while I was trying to make it couldn't wait for me to quit and go finally pursue my dream, because I must have been an absolute nuisance to have around in a corporate environment. I mean, I don't stop talking like this. I don't stop talking about comedy, and I don't stop trying to make people laugh. And sometimes that's great. Like, they loved me in hospitality. They loved me less in the law firm mailroom.
Right.
So there were places where they didn't want what I had to offer. But I was writing comedy. I think my family grew up writing sketches as a form of entertainment at parties. So we would actually put on little sketches. And I remember an early memory was sitting under a table listening to my mother and her brother and some of the other members of the family punching up a joke, like polishing it and refining what the punchline could be. It wasn't just, oh, well, that made everybody laugh, let's move on. They were actually like, I think that can be a little better. And that's when I saw, sort of like falling in love with anything, cooking or painting, anything that you suddenly see not just as a product, but a beautiful practice. I was like, oh, comedy can be a really beautiful practice. And I've never given that up.
Were you one of the Bill Peters kids?
I sure was. I owe, as a matter of fact, I've often said I got a gorgeous education at San Francisco State, and his name was Bill Peters.
Yeah.
Like I almost don't remember any other my teachers. I mean, I had other teachers, and certainly got scolded by some people. Those names I remember. But Bill was the only person who, no matter what I did, it was like, yeah, keep going with that. Go a little further.
Mm-hmm.
I
have to admit, I'm a bit jealous when I was there, because I came in as a transfer student, and by the time the department had any idea who I was getting ready to leave. So that was when Bill Peters approached me, and I got to do Brown Bag finally. Only it was the year that Bill Peters didn't do it. And I was like, come on.
No. That is tragic, because that really is it's like whether you were in the Peter Brooks black turtleneck production of the Scottish play, or whether you were in every other derivative turtleneck Shakespeare that ever happened after that. Like, Bill had the magic touch, and you knew why you were doing things when you were doing them. And then we'd all go off and try to imitate him and go, God, this made so much sense when Bill was doing it.
Right.
But he was always on to the next thing.
I remember seeing a few projects coming off of campus and going, oh, not as easy when you're not in that safe environment.
I'm trying to remember, Norm, did you work on that Moby Dick that Bill
I didn't. Did? I was just finishing up as that happened. I think that was maybe my last year. And that was what I saw it off campus. It was not as good off campus as it was on campus.
Right. And this is one of those things, like when you talk, Reg, when you ask that question, like, was theater weirder? Was it more experimental? The idea of an adaptation of Moby Dick done by clowns was a Bill Peters original. And in its day, it seemed both unbelievably audacious and also like, well, sure, why not? And the funny thing is, while that still sounds like kind of a big goof, it now sounds more in line. We understand all the parts of that.
Right.
People literally were like, I don't understand. Moby Dick is like 4 days long. You're not going to do it all at once.
Right.
And you're certainly not going to do it with clowns, and maybe just everyone holding sticks, because that was also Bill's idea. By the way, it's not just clowns. It's clowns on a bare stage holding sticks.
Yeah. There was nothing on that stage except you guys. That was amazing.
So there were so many happy moments in there, and I've never let go of one of the amazing things that Bill taught me was called a moment between lines, and it was in his principles of directing. And it was just simply the fact that you can look anywhere in a script and you can say, okay, after that person says this line and before that person responds, what could possibly happen there? And I so love that. And it's changed. I'd never thought of myself as a director. And I've been put into that role for various things. You know, there's simply, when you self-produce, sometimes you end up being the one directing because you can't afford to hire anybody else. So you do it. Or you know, with a self-produced script, I know it well enough that it'll be easier for me to do it than to translate it to somebody else's vision.
Right. So what was that again? A moment in?
It was called a moment between lines.
Yeah, I wrote it down.
Between lines. I love it. Yeah.
Reg is going to look for this every place. I want you to look for it every place you go now, Reg.
Yeah, no. Go ahead, Reg. No. Go ahead, Norman.
I was just going to say, so I'm seriously, when I say jealous, I came out of that department going, God damn it. But I was doing shows outside, so it was easy for me to do. And I did walk away from the department just kind of going, what the fuck? What was that about? Then I started bumping into the people that I'd worked with. And I did go see people's projects. And that's when I started going, oh, shit. I'm not the only one doing this. And there's a lot that I picked up from that experience that I didn't appreciate at the time. I felt like I was getting crumbs at the time. And instead I'm walking out and going, wow, you know, suddenly I'm like Jesus with the fish and the loaves. I'm like, hey, here's a meal. No, we can make a meal out of this. Bam. Yes. So when you talk about being in different venues and stuff, no problem. We got to figure out a couple of lights because we're literally under the freeway in a goddamn dumpster. So we've got to have some lighting, but people can just sit. It'll be okay. We're going to make this work. And people who saw it, they were like, wow, this is so incredible. Like they acted as if we had built the freeway.
Yes. That's what I love I love site specific work. I'm working on a site specific piece right now. with another company I love, Thrill Ride Mechanics, which is based out of the Circus Center. Toby Moore, who you probably know, Norman.
Yeah.
And I love site-specific work, and I love the fact that it opens people up. They can't help but see that all theater is just based on opportunity. You can't help but suddenly see that when there is no door upstage left.
Right.
When you have to make those entrances happen. I ran for the last couple of years right before the pandemic shut down the venue. I was running a club night, not something I thought I would do, start on at 50 years of age, but the venue was like, you should do something here. And I think they were talking to me as a playwright, and I thought about it. I thought, well, I could come in and I could put chairs at one end and shine lights at the other, and we could turn one more beautiful space into a kind of tawdry black box theater, because that's what a lot of people do. It's like, put on a play in here. Right. You mean take this thing that's not a theater and make it a theater? Why?
Right.
So I threw a club night, and I just used all my theater tools. And we never hung lights for any of it. I handed all of my fellow performers flashlights, mag lights, and when someone was on stage, your job was to run spot. And the audience loved it because it was all stripped bare.
Right.
So use the Bill Peters term, if you can't hide it, feature it. Bill was one of the first people I ever saw that did a production of Romeo and Juliet, where he pulled out the teasers, and you saw them run the rigging. You saw them run off stage and lower their own balcony.
Right.
Yeah. Which says,
we recently had a conversation. I think it was it was on a panel for Play Cafe, not Play Cafe. No, I did Playground had a panel, and
this is what you get for being so promiscuous, Norman. Your hands are in so many things you don't know when you said it.
Right. Almost, but there were young people. Play Cafe doesn't have that many young people. Playground does. And the young people were talking about devised theater. And I shut up for a big part of that conversation. And then I said, I just have to say, I don't really know another way to do theater. If you actually gave me a full-on theater with all the support, all the bells and whistles, I've done it, and it's been exciting to me, but it's a totally different animal from what I normally do. I want to bring my audience into this space and give them the experience here.
Yeah.
And speaking of space, I don't know if you guys know, but Dragon Theater, they're giving up their space. I got an email, I don't know, 2 days ago or something like that. But it brings up an interesting thing. I mean, what you say. Yeah, it's horrible, but it's what's going on. I mean, you can have all these ideas, or you can say, well, we're going to have the traditional black box theater, and everyone's like, oh, geez, here we go again, and you don't get the audience, and all of a sudden it's gone. But
you shut down for a year, so you don't have the money.
Yeah, but Killing My Lobster, 25 years. What do you think? What is the longevity? I mean, how does it keep going where others have failed?
One of the things I think that's so important is that it is nomadic. It has been in a variety of venues, but it's always had a home base at about 17th and Folsom, right across from the right spot. Has a little upstairs office, and I think the thing that keeps it going, I have to give a mad shout out to Allison Page, the artistic director of Killing My Lobster, a true visionary, a great boss, like one of the greatest you'll ever have, and a funny person herself, who understands that things have to be done lightly and with nuance in order to make them happen. So there's just been so much acceptance of ideas, and quite frankly, because we had somebody in charge who was like, I am a woman, I'm going to bring more women aboard. I am not a person of color, but I am going to make it my mission to create a diversity fellowship. I'm going to bring more queer and POC people to the table, because quite frankly, comedy is lacking. And so finding that, I think that has given us a whole new lease on life. And we have not been saddled with, at times it was a blessing and a curse because you pay a lot to a rental space.
Right.
It's amazing how much of the budget just goes to like, here are the keys and you can turn the lights on for yourself.
For those few hours that you're there.
Right, exactly. But at the same time, they've never had to be a landlord. And I think that's also a blessing. Because I was playwright in residence for Exit Theater Company.
Yeah.
Exit, good old Exit.
Many years. Yeah. And at one time, they had 4 venues running simultaneous. The space that Cutting Ball now employs was originally called Exit on Taylor.
Yeah. That's right. I remember we did our first production, I think 2001. It was The Marriage of Bet and Boo. Actually, 2002. Yeah.
I was going to say, the very first show in there was also 2001. I did two of my biggest shows happened in the Exit, in the Exit main stage and at Exit on Taylor. And the first show that ever went into Exit on Taylor was called Gogol. And it was myself, Dave Malloy, who's now a Broadway composer, and a troupe called Banana Bag and Bodice, which was Jason Craig and Jessica Jelliff. More folks working in a very unconventional way. Their writing style was different. Their clowning style was avant-garde. And we came in 2001 and put Gogol into that space. And the thing I remember is that the paint was so fresh, there was only one layer of it. So when you pulled up the spike tape, there was floor.
Right.
Wow.
We kept having to repaint every night. Every time we moved the spike tape, we had to repaint the floor.
No, but it just, the success of Killing My Lobster just to survive, because there's so many companies that just fold because they can't, they don't have the money. And also with comedy, everyone has to be on the same page. I mean, everyone can be creative in its own, within the piece. But here's a question for you, Sean, because I've always felt that comedy is so much more difficult than drama, because everyone has their own little there's a bit of spontaneity. There's always spontaneity when it comes to theater. when it comes to comedy. But what happens when one person is not on the same page, where someone is like, okay, what is this person doing? It just doesn't fit. Have you had those issues at all?
You can definitely find that, even sometimes just stylistically, or the venue you play can support a certain kind of comedy and not be used to others. Because Norman and I have both played our share of nightclub venues and things like that as well. I had a play that went up at the Oasis here in San Francisco.
Okay. With the swimming pool.
Yes, exactly. The space that used to be the swimming pool. So this was a gay bathhouse at one time, a swimming pool, right? And then a bar, and then they took out the pool. It sat empty for 20 years, and somebody went, "This is a theater." It's one of the nicest venues in San Francisco, secretly, because it's got gorgeous, you've got bar service, people at tables. It's very refined, beautiful proscenium, some good theatrics. And here's something, theater listeners in the audience, how many venues have you worked at where there's actually a bathroom in the dressing room? You don't have to go someplace else half in makeup to go take a piddle before you go on stage. Nothing like I'm gonna cross through the audience and be like, "Hi, I'm not here."
Yeah, exactly.
So, but the Oasis is given to very high camp theatrics. They do, they're the ones who produce like the Golden Girls in drag. So to put a legitimate show in that space, even with drag performers, was a very different thing. And I was doing an original musical with 5 drag performers and 1 self-identified lady. And I thought, this is going to be a challenge. And my producers were like, "I think you need to camp it up a little. I think you need to play front. I think you need to be bigger." And I was like, I think I'm going to reward people for paying attention. And we're just going to see how that goes. And it was so amazing, because the second, it's sort of like we teach people how to treat us. And we set the tone in theater immediately with the smallest of cues. So the thing I decided to do was that as the director of the piece, I was the writer, right? But as the director of the piece, I came as my drag alter ego, Cora Values. And Cora Values is a truck stop waitress in Rectal, Texas.
Wow. There you go.
Yes. And so she sat everybody in that audience. She met them at the podium, took them to their seats, wiped down the table, and told them they were going to have a nice time. And they did, because that was the atmosphere we engendered. Oasis, after that show, started seating people with an actual host. It wasn't just, here are your tickets, go get it for yourself. So you enculture a theater by making theater in it. You can change the way a venue works by giving your culture to it.
Yeah, and not playing to cliches, because you could have did exactly what the person told you to do and camp it up or whatever, but you made it yourself, and you gave the audience something that they hadn't seen before.
Yes, and I, for at least for the time we were there, it was beautiful. And I do think that Oasis has distinguished itself because it's not just people in funny dresses doing funny voices at one end of a bar standing on top of the pool table. It's a legitimate venue that puts on spectacular productions. And I just love the fact that San Francisco has grown in its legitimacy as a theater town, but it has not lost all of the strange from those 80s days.
Yeah, there you go. Talk to us about Pride Inside. You guys opened yesterday. It's only 3 days. Well, 2 days live. But
Yes.
How's it? I know it's difficult doing it on camera because you're used to being on stage. But how's it gone? How's the audience reacted?
It's fantastic, and just to be totally articulate about it, it is filmed comedy, so we're not performing it in a kind of a Zoom environment. They were filmed pieces, and in many cases, we certainly used a lot of green screen because we're still being very COVID conscious and protecting the performers. But we were also very lucky because some of us are and have been bubbled together since the beginning of this. So
Right.
a few of us are actually in little pods, and we're able to make comedy together and then film it. There are a couple of pieces that are shot in my living room. And what's wonderful is it kind of has the perfect anarchic combination between a classic sketch show where it's something different every couple of seconds. You won't be bored. I promise you that about Pride Inside. You will not be bored. It is 40 minutes of comedy, and it is lean and tight and fast paced. And one of the things that I so enjoyed was that it really is almost like a film festival because we embraced the medium instead of being like, and now here's a blackout and some music, the things we would normally do for a scene change or something. We were able to take people to so many different places, reach deeper into genre than you would normally. So we have a little piece of Tennessee Williams, and we have some sort of early TV, and we have news reports and infomercials. It goes all over the place. So Pride Inside, I'm really, really proud of it. It was directed brilliantly by Michael Phillis. I had an incredible writing team. I was just so very, very proud of the project.
Yeah, and we'll definitely be pushing it. We'll have a little link so that people can actually see it. We post, I think, about 2 hours from now, so maybe people will be able to see tonight's show, but also tomorrow. You'll be streaming all day tomorrow, so that'll be great. One last question for you, because we're getting close to 1 o'clock. Where do you see yourself in the future? Do you see yourself? There are a lot of folks who are leaving San Francisco. There are some who are still holding on. It sounds like you're satisfied. You sounds like you're not a frustrated actor or writer. It sounds like you're getting all that you need. But where do you see yourself in the future?
Well, a little bit like the kid I was when I stepped out of the car and got that first deep lungful and thought, I guess I'm going to live and I can make some plans. I think I just hit that stride all over again. Like, I did watch this city go through some hard times. I watched it do it 2 or 3 times. Norman and I are just like, We are,
Oh,
you know, we're gonna be doing this like we sound like we're at a VA hospital, Norman. We're like, I've seen the hard times.
but I love looking at those people a little bit older and going, you're still doing it. Okay,
made
cool.
it.
Well, I'm gonna keep going for a while.
No, and Norman, you were one of the first people with escape velocity out of San Francisco State. I think you and I have both gone and done things, and then we keep coming back here because this is a great place to make. So
Yeah.
to answer your question, Reg, I hope that this will always be the place I start making things. Of course, I love to travel. I love to tour my shows. I love going to New York. I've loved touring with productions in the past, and I hope to keep doing that as well. But I want to build things that when people see them, no matter where they see them in the world, they go, that came out of San Francisco. That is from a mindset that is distinct and unique.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So gentrification I was just going to ask, has gentrification, money has not, because a lot of people feel the same way, but they're like, hey, I just can't afford to stay here. Either I can't afford producing or I just can't afford the rent. But it sounds like you're doing okay.
I am in a rent controlled apartment. I have what they call the golden handcuffs.
Oh, lucky you.
I can't go anywhere, Red.
Right.
I am here. They're gonna drag me out of this apartment feet first. So I still don't have any money. I am still the fiscal cockroach that I've always been. People talk about like, oh, the good times and the bad times. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, is there still, if there's still a light bulb in my refrigerator, I feel rich. So I'm not going to be bothered by it. I know that money and theater are almost antithetical to each other, that in some ways, the more you make, the more that's just more to spend on the next thing.
Yeah.
You know, one of the greatest lines a Broadway producer ever said, came backstage after an out-of-town tryout, and the actor said, how'd we do tonight? And he said, great, we only lost 30,000.
Right, exactly. I'm sorry, Norman, I cut you off.
No, you didn't. I was just laughing.
No. That's fantastic. Everyone should have that spirit, and I'm looking forward to seeing Pride Inside, Killing My Lobster.
I do have one question, and that is because we most recently reconnected because of Playground.
Yes.
And I have always found it difficult, that notion of the 10-minute play. At least with Killing My Lobster, you can write a short and know that it's going to have some life beyond that. But how does that strike you, that notion of, hey, throw this thing out here next month, you got a week, write this, bam, and then it's gone.
Yes. Well, so this is the amazing thing, is that I have more short plays than any other form in my canon. I have something at this point like, I don't know, 50 short plays. But a short play is still about 8 pages too long for Killing My Lobster. Killing My Lobster was like, the first time I brought in a 5-page sketch, they were like, what a beautiful epic evening of entertainment. What a beautiful Dickensian adaptation you've brought us. So I had to scale way back even from my 10-page experience. Right. But what I want to say about Playground and the short play format, if you really want to get into this, is that I think there are artists who will always thrive in an assignment with tight strictures around it. There are always those people who are going to really crack the nut and do exactly the work they were meant to do, probably because they would do it no matter what they were doing.
Right.
I also think there are people who just, that 10 pages is just somewhere in there, they find the seed. And then hopefully they go on and go, okay, now I know what I wanted to talk about. Now I'm going to take that seed out of that, a page and a half out of that 10 pages, and now I'm going to expand it into something really wonderful. So I think it can be a blessing. I think it can be a burden for some people, but I think there's always something to be had, even on the level of like just the exercise, the rigor of it is so good for us as a community of writers. And then you're so right, Norman. There is this incredible sort of, but what do I do with these things?
Yes.
So let me tell you what I did, which is that the first time I suddenly saw that my hard drive was just filling up with these short plays.
Yeah.
I produced an evening of short plays, and then I wrote 10 more, and I produced another evening of short plays. And it's kind of wonderful to have that experience as a playwright, to say, well, if I'm going to have you here for an hour and a half, let me just go ahead and give you 10 perspectives. In the place where maybe you would get one thought from another writer, let me give you 10. And maybe you'll see that my mind works in such a way that all of these are making some sort of central point. So that's what I believe about short plays.
No, it's wonderful. And I've had to kind of accept that, because at first it was just hey, are you working? No, I'm available. Hire me. And then after a while, it really became, what is this dynamic? And what are we doing? And then in the last couple of years, I'm having all these conversations with playwrights. And, and I had somebody call me a few months ago to say, I'm thinking about continuing in the writing pool. I don't know if I want to do that. And I'm like, well, that's part of what this is you get to a place with your craft that you can decide whether this is something you need to continue. It is a gorgeous place to have that challenge, to have that, to work that muscle. Once you feel like that muscle is doing just fine and you're bored, then
Absolutely.
You need to think about the next thing.
I think throughout San Francisco, I think throughout theater history, there's been a lot of play development because there's tons of funding for play development, and that's a product, and we understand that. What is sometimes promised but much harder to really fulfill is playwright development. And I'm guilty of it myself. I started my theater company, which was only around for 5 whole years, a drop in the vast ocean of theater history. But we tried something called the New Playwrights Program, and one of the goals was bring a playwright in, let them see all the parts of the rehearsal process. Don't hide them away. Learn that the way you treat a living playwright is not to be like, drop off the script, we'll see you opening night. That is not. We only do that because we don't have the playwright there. We can't shake Shakespeare and be like, what were you saying in this part? That has its own virtues, and thank God there are brilliant directors who can crack that nut. But I really believe in that playwright development is the next thing we need to see in our culture here in San Francisco, because we do create so much new work in the Bay Area.
No, it's exactly where I feel most fruitful right now. And I love it. Every now and then somebody says, so you're a writer? And I'm like, I am ironically not a writer. I teach writers. I work with writers. I work in development all the time. And I try to stay in my lane.
And thank you for it, because it's the only reason I get any work at all is when they're like, well, Norman said he had to stay in his lane. So we'll call that other person.
What was your company?
It was called Foul Play Productions. And it started on such a lark. We were, it was myself and Cameron Eng. We were at the Dark Room Theater. This space.
Dark Room. We had Sherilyn Connolly on not too long ago.
Oh my God. Sherilyn and I go all the way back to the beginning of the Dark Room days. Absolutely. We did many a bad movie night together. Yes. And that was talk about a company that believed in saying yes. There was just no such thing as a bad idea. And so Cameron and I set out to just produce this goofy little trio of plays that we were interested in. We were going to do stage adaptations of 3 bad B movies. And they were B movies that literally started with a B. We were doing The Birds, The Bad Seed, and The Blob, with a repertory cast, one set. It was the same set for all 3 shows because we couldn't afford to do any different. And so I think Cameron actually said, we need a name for the poster. It looks really weird that there's no, production company at the top.
Right.
I said, just come up with something, Cameron. I don't care. And so it's like a Foul Play Production. And then we continued to make work for another 5 years and develop other people's work. In fact, it was the only time for 5 years. It was the only time for those 5 years that I wasn't prolific as a playwright, because I actually started thinking about nurturing other talent. and creating and helping other people create their work. And from there, I went on, and now I'm teaching for Killing My Lobster. Like, it really opened up a whole other side of me, and I'm very grateful for that.
That's
right
cool.
on. No, that's awesome. And I totally agree with developing playwrights. So many times, a lot of playwrights, a company will say, "Oh, you've got a piece. Let's have it." And either they'll produce it and then that's it, or they'll say, "Okay, well, thank you." And yeah, really, I mean, like what Garrett Graves is doing for the Berkeley Rep, having a seminar where you actually bring in playwrights with their plays, and it's developed for, let's say, I think it's 6 weeks, and that's really, really helpful, and we need more of that.
Yes.
So I
And
totally
people,
agree.
people say, well,
He'll come back.
I hope he'll come back.
He was buffering just a little bit, but
I didn't see that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll come back in.
I bet he'll come back.
Yeah, it's 1:08, so I don't know if we want to get into should we wait or should we get into birthdays?
We can do birthdays, and if he comes back in, then we'll pick it up where we were.
All righty.
Birthdays. So I try not to do non-theater people, but Jeffrey Labes is a pianist who now holds down Friday nights at the Alley. And so that has just started back up, and it happens to be his birthday today. So happy birthday, Jeff. Karen Criswell is somebody I worked with. It's the first time I had somebody take me into film, doing stage work and working with video. And we just made up a workshop, and Karen was the person who got us doing that. And then she went to LA to start actually producing film. Kiko, and messing up her name, Carrero is primarily known as the costumer for the mime troupe, but also performs and I think writes. Richard Jennings is somebody that we keep talking to because he runs the Musical Cafe, which is part of Play Cafe.
That's right.
Gonna skip a couple of names that I think you might have. Nicholas Strub is somebody that I got to meet as an educator, as a teaching artist. And then I found out that he was one of the amazing clowns that the Bay Area has. People don't realize how much of theater is rooted in clowning. When you see somebody who wears both those hats, it's kind of incredible. Leslie Wagner's birthday is coming up this week. I haven't seen her.
We did Debbie Does Dallas together.
Yeah, she's incredible. And then producers we don't give enough credit to. Sachi Nagai Kabori is a producer of
welcome back, Sean. Welcome back.
We're just doing a few shout outs for birthdays. Sachi is the mother of Ann Kabori.
Yeah, I knew there would be a connection. I knew there would be a connection.
Yeah. So, but they're so wonderfully supportive. Utopia, that's the name of the theater company. And then one other non-theater person is Francesca Palazzolo Ochoa. I only knew her as Francesca Ochoa. She was my 7th grade teacher. And she didn't directly get me into theater, but she did. One of the English teachers wanted to do a Christmas play. And she said, well, I have a student. And bam, got me in. Another name that I think you'll have, so I'll skip that one. Jonathan Gonzalez, somebody worked with in the Bay Area when I got my first really well-paying theater job, or what passes for that in the Bay Area, was with San Francisco Shakespeare Festival. And Jonathan was in the cast of Midsummer Night's Dream with me. Ed Decker, who runs the New Conservatory Theater, his birthday is coming up this week. Marissa Wolf, who was at Crowded Fire and is now up at the Portland Center stage. Another name I think Reg has. And then my final one is Robert Sicular. If you don't know Robert Sicular, you're missing out on one of the jewels of Bay Area theater, one of the old men of Bay Area theater, who bounces all up and down the coast doing stuff. And when I hear that he is doing Dickens somewhere, I'm so excited, because he is just such a strange bird in life that to bring that energy to Charles Dickens and Christmas Carol is kind of a wonderful thing. So that's my list of birthdays, Reg.
And my quick list, and welcome back, Sean. We're just doing birthdays and shout outs, and then we'll do shows, and then we'll say goodbye to you. My list is quick. Well, I don't know, not so quick. Today's birthday, Arthur Leo Taylor. So I went to Duke Ellington School of the Arts for theater, and one of the upperclassmen was Arthur. He was always available. I always appreciate when you go to school, it can be very, very unnerving, especially if you are coming in as a from junior high school to high school. I mean, for the first time, and the upperclassmen were really, really giving. And Arthur was one of those who was really giving. His birthday is today. He is, I think, 53. Christian Wilburn, we had him on as a guest. Actually, his birthday was the 24th.
Right.
That was 2 days ago. You mentioned Richard Jennings. Also on the 28th, Kari Moy, a good friend of ours.
I was hoping you'd get that one.
And he's doing a fundraiser for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So he's raised already $165 out of $200. So please give if you have a little bit of money to give. Also on the 28th, Craig Souza, and we've had him on. He is an ex-East Ender, and I remember he did a Tennessee Williams piece. One of my favorite times I've seen him on stage, "The Death of Queens." I forget the title of it. And we shall sing the songs of the death of Queens. And in any case, he was just fantastic in that. You mentioned Leslie Wagner. Also on the 29th is April Deutschley. We had her on. As a matter of fact, she participated in my little play, Judicial Process, done by there was the Brecht project that we were involved in. And she's fantastic. Also on the 29th, Stacey Cray. One of the best episodes that we've had of the A. Stacey talked about existentialism. She is a musician. She is a musical writer, and that's how I knew her. And she worked on the piece on Sartre. Love the Struggle. I've got a couple more. David Stein. We were talking about Darkroom Theater. One of the Darkroomers, David Stein, and he and I are very good friends. And he's known all around, excellent actor and a great writer. And he is giving a donation on his birthday to Rocket Dog Rescue. And he's raised $60 for that. And Dawn Monique Williams, how can I forget her? She is the associate artistic director for Aurora. And she has directed me twice on stage, a magnificent director, just an all-around wonderful person. And the last person, actually, I want to give a dedication to my biological mom. She would have been, I believe, her 60th birthday. No, not 60th. It would have been her 70th birthday today.
Dude, you were going to make me feel bad. If you make me older than your mom, I was going to hit you. Damn.
Yeah, no. She, and I tell you, as you know, being involved in theater, you mentioned Bad Movie Night. Some of the earliest memories I have of my mom is her dragging me to these weird B movies, horror movies like The Manitou and Squirm, and I have no idea why she would do it. And some of these B movies were just really crap and outright funny. And she would drag me to these movies. I think she just didn't want to be alone, and she was a single mom at the time, and it was just her and I. So a little shout out to my departed biological mom. In any case, shows. We're already pushing Pride Inside. Any other shows?
I'm going to be Frederick Douglass on July 3rd.
There you go.
But they won't give me a link, so I can't tell anybody where it is.
It's just your own thing, Norman. It's your own like great moments with Mr. Lincoln. You're just going to go into a room by yourself and be Frederick Douglass for a day.
It's the third time I've been invited to do it, and I think both other times it canceled. So we'll see if it happens this time.
I was going to ask you about Afro Solo. How did that go?
It's still going. I mean, this is where I hate about not doing theater. When you film something, we videotaped that in January. It just got released and I got a link. So that's what I gave you last week. I think that link is still good. Vernon Medeiros did his solo piece. I directed it and filmed it. And then we fought with the producer about whether or not we needed to redo it. And I'm like, I am not a videographer. This is what you get. You were telling the guy to do it on his phone, please. No, I did better than that, and that's as good as it is. And it looks, and then the tech guy, Kevin Myrick, who works a lot with the African American Shakespeare Company, did all this wonderful video production stuff. So it looks incredible. I look really good. Vernon looks great. So yeah, I think that's still available.
Cool. There are a couple of shows that of course, we're going to push Pride Inside by Killing My Lobster. They have a live show today, and then the Brunch Hangover special will be tomorrow, and there's a link for that. Also, are we still pushing Pulp Sculpture, a series by Bill Bibbins? Is that still going on?
You may as well, since we're going to have him as a guest. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Also, What's in a Name? Theater Versus doing that. It's streaming July the 23rd through September the 1st. John Tracy is directing the show. He was a former guest on the Yay. Also, Cabrillo Stage is doing Circus, and my good friend Brenna Kimmerly will be in that show, and she's going to be a future guest on the Yay. And
Yeah.
Brenna was in my little mini musical, Nia. So that'll be July the 9th through the 11th. Also, still streaming, Hold Me the Forgotten Way. About Face Theater. That is a one piece of it. There's a series of pieces that are being done there, and one piece is being directed by Eli Sonny Orquiza. That's
nice.
streamed on June the 16th, and it'll be going on for the rest of this year. So we want to push that. Intimate Apparel, I don't think that's still going on. Janae Simon.
Is it done?
It may still be streaming. You know what? I'm still going to put the link up, and if it's there, check it out. If not,
And I was going to ask about the SF Playhouse show. That, if we have the link for that, aren't they? I hope they're still going. I feel bad. I haven't gotten off my butt to see anything yet.
yeah.
You know, speaking of Janae Simon, I want to throw out Awesome Theater Company produced a podcast called 6 Things God Hates. Janae directed 6 different radio plays. I wrote one of them. A brilliant cast of 5 or 6 performers. Really a tight, fun thing to listen to, each based on a little passage from the Bible that lists the things that God supposedly hates, like a haughty look or one who stirs up trouble in their community. So we each took a prompt and wrote these plays. They're great.
Wow.
I didn't know she directed.
I didn't know she directed. See, Janae Simon.
God. What a multi-tool. What a threat to all of our employment. If Janae Simon was let off the leash, none of us would work again. We would just all watch her. She'd be Frederick Douglass.
I had an actress break her foot. Janae came in, and it was working with a playwright, and I knew my playwright, so I was nervous about what they would say. It's like first day with the script. I'm taking notes, but I'm not giving you any notes. And my playwright kept his mouth shut, thank God. Second rehearsal, she was just, it was like, okay, I'm glad I didn't say anything.
Yeah, I was on stage with her. She was Elizabeth Keckley, and we did a Civil War Christmas. It was a period piece, a historical piece on Christmas, and she was just excellent. And I tell you, I've been begging her over and over again. She's brilliant, but she gets a little shy, and so hopefully she'll be a guest on the Yay. All right. Are we still pushing Begin the Begin, Oakland Theater Project?
I think so. I'm looking to see if I have dates on it.
That's right. And it ends July the 3rd, May the 20th through July the 3rd.
Yes.
2 other things, Shakes Pod, that opens up, as a matter of fact, it opens up today. Titus Andronicus, Alan Coyne will be playing Demetrius. We've been pushing that, and that opens today. It'll be streamed. Also, later on, August the 28th, Shakes Pod will be doing Richard III, and that'll have Lamont Rigel as Richard III and Cynthia Lagazinski as the Duchess of York. And also Quickfire Monologues, that's still going on. A weekly prompt, writers will write monologues and actors will record them. And there's an email, quickfiremonologues@gmail.com, if you want to be involved in that. Sean, other than this show, Killing My Lobster, is there anything else that you're doing?
It's so funny. I always have to look around my apartment to see what the mess is in front of me. I feel like unless the props are literally sitting in my living room waiting to be loaded in or loaded out, I don't remember what I'm working on. Right. So I have plays in development. I have in my living room, being as my coffee table, a trunk full of props and costumes for a production that Poltergeist Theater kind of spiritually commissioned me for, which is called Gaslit. It's a retelling of the old play and movie Gaslight.
Right.
And talk about a prescient thing for our times, sort of a queer retelling of what it means to be gaslit, to have power taken away and to be told that you are too weak or too weak minded to function in our society. So I'm hoping that pops out and comes to life sometime before year's end. I am also working with Toby Moore of Thrill Ride Mechanics on the development of Wonder World 2.0, which is a kind of an Alice in Wonderland meets an underworld spectacle, and it's really beautiful. Imagine taking Clown, as we were talking about before, and using it to explore loneliness and isolation and getting through. So it's very much in the spirit of what we've all just come through as a culture.
Wow, you got to let us know when that's going to, Poltergeist Theaters, Gaslit, and Wonder World 2.0. Let us know when it'll come to fruition, and we'll push it.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Did you enjoy yourself, Sean?
I enjoyed myself, and more importantly, I enjoyed both of you very, very much.
Thank you so much. I love the conversation. I mean, just the back and forth, just magnificent. Good podcasting.
Yay!
All righty. Well, for those who are watching on YouTube, we are here. Please like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. If there are subject matters that you want us to hit on, to let us know in the comments section. If you're listening to this on the traditional podcast, on that purple podcast app, if you have it on your iPhone or iPad, we are there. We're on Spotify. If you're an Android user, you can use the SoundCloud app, or just go on soundcloud.com and you'll find us. The Yay was created by theater people for theater people. If you have a show you want to advertise, or if you just want to advertise yourself, let us know. Hit us up on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I'm at Red Space Clay.
And I'm at Hoosier, and our page, the Yay now has a Twitter page, the Yay 3.
The Yay 3, that's right. Thank you for remembering, because I was like, we do have a Yay thing, but yes.
And I'm still figuring it out. Good God, I'm trying to connect it up to an email address right now, and I tried it even today. So far, no luck, but I'm working on it.
Yeah. Sean, are you on social media?
I am indeed. You can find me on Instagram, Sean Owens Playwright. You can always come to my Facebook. I'm easy to find. I'm usually when you scroll through all the Sean Owens of the world, I'm the one that's in lavender almost consistently. So you won't miss me.
Did you say Twitter or Instagram?
Oh, I'm on Instagram. Sorry, Sean Owens Playwright. Yes, indeed.
There you go. So if you folks are looking for a playwright and an actor, you can't go wrong with Sean Owens. And please check out Killing My Lobster and Pride Inside. All right, folks, it is a wonderful day. Hope everyone's enjoying themselves. And if you haven't been vaccinated, please get vaccinated so we can take these masks off and actually enjoy ourselves. In any case, as Norman and I always say, we gotta find a better sign off. And we are out.